it makes people aware of what's going on, I'm going to give you something this morning that I think will help and can help. And I want to give you the importance of having a merry heart, okay? I don't know why people... Look, the reason why people take their own life is numeral, or there's numerous things. But I know one of them, and one of the main reasons why, is this very thing. Is they get, their heart becomes sorrowful, and it leads to other things, and unfortunately a lot of times can lead to what happened with our fire chief here just about a month ago. So I'm going to give you this morning, show you here from the Bible on how important it is that we have a merry heart. All right, and let's pray and we'll get started. Lord, please help me now, I pray. Holy Spirit, guide me, direct me, and help me to teach your word rightly. Please, I pray for your help. And Lord, please bless the people today in a special way, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Our heart is the seat of our emotions, all right? Our heart is our inner being. The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So just like our heart itself pumps blood to every part of our body, and in so doing, it provides our organs the resources they need to keep working, our heart, or our inner self, if you please, is constantly feeding our emotions, all right? And that then, in turn, helps determine the things that we do and the decisions we make. For example, I'll give you some Bible examples of what the heart can be the seat of that the Bible talks about. We're not going to turn to all of these, but in Matthew 5:28, the Bible talks about the heart being the seat of adultery. All right, Romans 6:17 talks about the heart being the seat of obedience. Mark 12:30 talks about the heart being at the seat of love. Mark 11:23 talks about how the heart is at the seat of doubt. 2 Corinthians 9:7 talks about how the heart is at the seat of purpose. All right, give me a purpose in life. Psalm 19:14 tells how the heart is at the seat of meditation. Leviticus 19:17 talks about how our heart could be at the seat of hatred. Jeremiah 5:23 talks about how the heart can be at the seat of rebellion. Acts 2:26 talks about how the heart can be at the seat of rejoicing. All the heart affects all of these things. Romans 10:1 talks about how the heart could be at the seat of desire. Proverbs 16:5 talks about how the heart could be an effect in the area of pride. Romans 1:24 talks about how the heart could be at the seat of lust. Isaiah 35:4 talks about how it could be the seat of fear. Mark 2:8 talks about the seat of our reasoning. Psalm 28:3 talks about how it could be at the seat of mischief. And then John 14:1 talks about how it could be at the seat of sorrow. All right, so our heart affects many of our emotions in our life. It is there in our inner being, is the cause and effect of our emotions. All right, now what's important to understand also is every sin that we commit begins with a thought. Right, every sin that we commit, the thought then becomes sin when we entertain it in our heart. All right. For instance, when a man sees a woman that is not dressed modestly and he thinks a bad thought, if he immediately gets that thought out of his mind, he has not committed adultery. Okay. The adultery is one meditates on that thought enough that it enters the heart. In things, as a man looketh on a woman to lust after her. In other words, now it's not just the glance. Now he's entertaining it. Now that's when it becomes a sin. But it begins here in the mind. All right. The Bible says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." So what we say and what we do is a reflection then of what is in our heart at the time that we say or do it. And that's important to understand. It's what our heart is experiencing, the state of our heart at the time, okay, that we do it. Now, our heart changes all the time, all right? 1 minute could be experiencing love. The next minute it could experience hate. And some people do a very good job of controlling their heart, while others have a very hard time doing it in things. Now, the key to controlling one's heart is controlling one's mind. All right? So it's important, if you want to control your heart, you've got to learn to first control your mind, because every sin begins with a what? Thought. All right? So the way that is done is by what is put into our mind, through the eye gate and through the ear gate. All right? So if you want to control your heart, you go to control your mind. If you want to control your mind, you got to control what you see and what you hear. All right? Now, this morning, I want us to concentrate on two of the types of the heart the Bible talks about. All right? Two of them, because these two are very critical to us. And that is a merry heart and a sorrowful heart. All right? So I want to talk about a merriful heart, and then a merry heart, and then a sorrowful heart. By doing that, I want to show you how important it is that we try to keep a merry heart. All right? And I'm not saying there's nobody that could do it 100% of the time. There's nobody out there. You're going to have times of sorrow. You're going to have times of these things. But I want to help you to show you how important it is to make sure that you don't continue down that road of sorrow, and you work to obtain and get that merry heart back when things do happen, because it's very important. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. All right, Proverbs chapter number 15 here says here, a merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance. Now, notice here, a merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance. In other words, a merry heart is what causes your countenance to be cheerful. All right, a merry heart actually causes that to be cheerful. All right, and the word merry there means joyful or glad or gleeful. All right, so that means then that people don't have to look sad all the time. There are some people that maybe you have some friends that or some people that they're always looking sad and down and everything else. And even when times are tough, you don't have to look sad. Proverbs 14 says, even in laughter, the heart is sorrowful. So you can even be laughing and have a sorrowful heart. So you don't always have to look sad and stuff. Or when you're looking sad, you can still be happy and have that happy countenance. All right. So it's important that we understand the merry heart then is what helps make us to have a happy countenance. You look at there's some people that walk around smiling all the time, and you're thinking, wow, they must never sorrow. They must never. No, a person could be sorrowful inside and still smile, because a merry heart will help you with that. Right? Now, some people, when I was in Cape Girardeau, I pastored there. There was a lady that came to our church, and in fact, I quit going and greeting the people at the door there because of it. But she would come in and say, "Oh, hi, so and so. How you doing today?" And immediately it was, "Well, this is what's wrong, and this is what's wrong, and this is what's wrong, and this is what's wrong." And I'm thinking, I'm in good mood and everything's great. And I get done talking to her, and I'm thinking, wow, I might as well just give up. I ain't even going to the pulpit, man. I'm so depressed. But this lady was that way all the time, and all the time, and all the time. And she always walked around with a frown on her face. Some people they're just that way. But they want to look sad because they want people to ask what's going on, because they want to tell them all about their problems and all that. Now, there's some people that way, but the truth of the matter is, deep down inside them, the reason why they're that way is because they don't have a merry heart. They don't have a merry heart. Proverbs 15:15 here. Let me show you another one here. It says, all the days of the afflicted are evil. Look at this. But he that is of a merry heart hath a continual feast. Now the word merry there means this. It means to be good or make good. So it means different than what's in verse number 13. All right? So it means to be good or make good. And it says here, a merry heart has a continual feast. The word feast there means banquet. I love the word banquet. That's got to be one of my favorite words in the whole wide world, is banquet. You know, you say banquet, my eyes light up, you know, and my glands start to salivate and everything else, you know, and because I like the banqueting thing, you know, I like that idea. In other words, merry here, you know, it means that you're always satisfied. A merry heart here means that you're always satisfied. Your right desires are fed. All right, that's what a merry heart means here. In other words, one that has a merry heart in this instance will help others have a merry heart. You're satisfied. It's kind of like you ever see two dogs or watch one of the movies or whatever, you know, when you got two dogs or animals that are fighting over something because they're starving, and they're fighting over it, and they're literally kill themselves, they're fighting over it and everything. It's kind of like what we might do at our house when the fried chicken comes to the table, you know, but you know, once you get that belly full, then you know that other chicken on the table there don't seem quite as bad, and somebody else can safely reach over and grab one. You're not quite as worried, you know, they're not quite as worried about getting their arm bit off. That's what it's talking about here. You know, when you are satisfied, then you're more apt then to let others eat at your table. You see what I'm saying? And that's the way a merry heart here means. A merry heart here hath a continual feast. In other words, when you have that merry heart, it helps to satisfy your desires, so much so that you're willing to say, you know what, I want to help somebody else. I want to help somebody else. I want to make sure somebody else gets help. If you go and write the scripture down, but in John chapter number 4, verses 32 through 34, when the woman was at the well, and the disciples had gone to go and into the town to buy food, and Jesus talked to the woman at the well about her salvation, and the disciples came back and they said, Lord, we brought you some food. He says, I've already eaten. You know, I've already eaten. My food is my meat is to do the will of him that sent me. He was content with giving the woman at the well the living water, and that's what what it means here. In other words, when your heart is merry, when your heart is at that point, then it becomes satisfied. Your desires are satisfied, and you're willing to go and help others also to give them what they need and what they might want. So a merry heart has a continual feast. Let me show you another one. Go to Proverbs chapter number 17 and verse number 22. I like this one here. The Bible says, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Now, the word merry here means joyful or glad or gleeful. So a joyful or glad or gleeful heart doeth good like a medicine. In other words, what's it do? It helps heal your spirit. It helps heal your spirit. If you look on here in this verse, it says here, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. A broken spirit drieth the bones. You know, I really believe, and I really believe this is true, there's sometimes there are people out there that seem to be sick all the time, and sick all the time. They got this, they got that, they got this, and they got that, and they're always sick. And sometimes, I'm not saying all the times, Sometimes it's because they don't have a merry heart. And what has happened is that then their bones, their spirit is broken. A broken spirit drieth the bones. If you were to study, and you'll find out that the bones produce the substances that is needed in the body to help fight off sicknesses and stuff. Your broken bone, I don't know what it produces. The white blood count, I can't remember what it is that it produces, but anybody in here know medicine or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. It's is it the sinew or whatever that's in the bones do that. But if that bone is dry, guess what? It don't do that. And that's why the Bible is saying here, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, and then he uses the other contrast, saying, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. Look at Proverbs 15:13. Go back there again. And it says here, a merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance, but by the sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken. You see that? So a broken spirit drieth the bones. All right? Sorrow there means pain or wound. So a sorrowful heart then leads to a broken spirit, which drieth the bones. All right? So a sorrowful heart leads to a broken spirit, which drieth the bones. Now, maybe a person's heart is sorrowful because they've been hurt by somebody. Or maybe a person's heart is sorrowful because of pain that is going on in their life, maybe physical pain. Maybe it's because of an incident in their life that has taken place that has caused sorrow. I know Alyssa just lost her grandpa, and no doubt, it's been a sorrowful time dealing with the death of her grandpa. And so we all have these times when we're sorrowful. But what's important is that we take and not stay sorrowful. All right? It's important that we take and not stay in that mindset, in that mood, if you please. We need to, when we get to that, we need to make sure that we get ourselves out of that, that state, if you please. All right? That sorrowful state, if you please. Ecclesiastes 11:10. Let me show you what it says here. It says, therefore remove sorrow from thy heart, and put away evil from thy flesh. All right, so Ecclesiastes even tells us to remove sorrow from our heart in things. Why? Because what will happen is, as you become the longer you have that sorrowful heart, the longer you have that, the worse it will affect your life. It'll affect your testimony. It'll affect your even up to your health can be affected by a sorrowful heart. So, how do we get that? How do we remove that sorrow from our heart? How do we get that merry heart? All right. How do we do that? All right. Let me give you some things to help you with that, and then we'll go to the house and we'll shut it down. All right. Well, we'll shut it down, then we'll go to the house. All right. All right. Number one, how do you take and remove that sorrow from your heart? Guys, sit down. Sit down. Hey, sit down. No, you're a big boy. You don't have to. Sit down. All right, big boys don't have to go except for you could sit and watch a movie for 2 hours and not have to go. All right, so I know better than that. Sit there and be good. All right, so 4 things. Are you ready? How do we get or remove that sorrow and get a merry heart? All right, here we go. Number one, we got to forgive. We got to forgive. All right. Sometimes forgiveness, when we think about forgiveness, we think about forgiving others, and we do. Sometimes others hurt us. Sometimes others take and do things that hurt us, and we got to learn to forgive them. And when they do hurt us, we got to say, you know what? I'm going to have the mindset, I'm going to forgive. We got to have that, because what happens is that unforgiveness will build up bitterness, it'll build up anger, it'll build up hate, and certainly will make a sorrowful heart. But then not just others, but sometimes we get mad at God. And if you've never gotten mad at God, then you're a pretty good Christian. You're a whole lot better Christian than I am. Because there's been some times in my life where things have happened, and I'm thinking, God, why would you do that? Why would you do that? It doesn't seem logical. You know, and there have been times in my life where I've gotten upset with God. But the truth of the matter is, you've got to get to a point where you say, you know what? I have got to come and reconcile that with God, because if not, you're going to have a sorrowful heart. You're going to have a heart that will pretty soon will breed into hate and to spite against God. But then also, you got to learn to forgive yourself. People many times that's the hardest one, is forgiving yourself. You know, there ain't none of you in here perfect. None of us are. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to blow it at times. You're going to do things that you wish you'd never done. You're going to say things you wish you'd never said. You're going to make bad decisions. And sometimes when you do, you've got to learn to forgive yourself. You've got to learn to say, you know what? I blew it. I know that. And I've got to learn to forgive myself. And that's important sometimes, because that's when when decisions are made, like where people take their own lives, when they get to that point in their life where they can't forgive themselves for what they did and things. So learn to forgive. Number 2, live for others, not yourself. Learn to live for others. Learn to say, you know what? I'm going to make it my life about others and not about me. And that will help you. That will help you to deal with things when things come up that maybe might not be fair. You know, life is not fair. It's not fair. And so by learning to live for others instead of self, when things are not fair to you, you're not going to get near as disappointed. You're not going to get near as upset. All right? Number 3, find somebody else that's having a tougher time and help them. Find somebody else that's having a tough time and help them. This has probably been one of the things that's helped me in the ministry than anything, is, you know, when things start to go bad or whatever, you know, it's always helped to be able to help somebody else. And you'd be surprised what that does to your spirit, what that does to your heart when you're able to help somebody else. Now, if you help somebody else, don't broadcast it. Don't broadcast it. Just go do it. You know, so find somebody else that's having a tough time and help them. You know, there's always somebody that's having a tougher time than you are. Always. Always. You know, I think of, you know, we're on the East Coast right now. Think of what those people are, how a lot of them, what kind of, what they're dealing with today in South Carolina or North Carolina. Or think about what some of them are dealing with today. You know, and losing their homes and everything else. So there's always somebody that has a tougher time than us. All right. Number four. Focus on the positives, not the negatives. It's important. It's easy to focus on negative, but if all you do is focus on negative, your heart, it's going to be hard for you to have and get that merry heart. I counsel with the fire departments and the first responders here, the state police, and I had one of the fire departments call me up and needed somebody to talk to one of their firemen, and because they'd gone to a call where it was a DOA and couldn't save the person, and they were having a hard time with it and having a hard time dealing with it, and we were talking there, and some of the other firefighters were there, and I said, you know, you got to kind of focus on some of the positive. And I asked one of the firefighters, I said, you know, you've been doing this a while. How do you deal with something like this? And this is what he said, and it was very, very good. He said, you know, he says, what I do when I respond to an accident like that where I could not help, where the person died, what I do, I deal with it by remembering the times when I responded where we were able to help somebody, where it made a difference, where, you know, if we had not come there, it would have turned out worse, where, you know, they would have died, where we actually helped save a life. And he says, what I try to do, and this is what he said, I try to focus on those things. And that's so true. You know, and that was a good lesson and a good thought. You know, if we take and when these things, you know, we can look at each one of us to look at our life and say, you know what, I don't like this about my life, I don't like this about my life, I don't like this about my life, I don't like this about my life. And you keep doing that, you think about that very long, and it ain't going to be long. You're going to be down and depressed. You're going to have a sorrowful heart. Or you can make the choice to say, you know what? This is good in my life. Hey, this is good in my life. Hey, this is good in my life. Hey, this is good in my life. And you start doing that, and then it's not long, then you find that your attitude changes and your outlook on life changes, and it's not long that you have your heart then begins to change and have that merry heart. I had a lady, Kate Gerardo, she came in to talk to me, and she was hurting and very, very down, and she came in and said, Pastor, I just don't know, if I want to have anything to live for. And I mean, she was at that brink of just giving up her life. And so I listened to her for a little bit, and then I started asking her about this and about this and about this, and asked her, hey, do you have family? Do you have children? And she started thinking about some of these things, and started trying to turn the questions to have her start thinking about some of the good things that she has in her life. And it wasn't long, about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you could see her countenance is changing. And then she finally looked at me. She said, thank you, Pastor. She says, you know what? I have a lot to live for. I have a lot to be thankful for. And her countenance changed. Why? Because she began to focus on the positive. We were building a church there in Canton, and one of the guys was up on the roof, and this is back in the days where you didn't have the guns, the electric guns. When you shingled, you had the hammer and the nails, and when you were doing it, you didn't want to jack around when you're putting shingles up with the nails. You wanted one strike and go on, one strike and go on. So you came down pretty hard with the hammer and everything. Well, they were up there, and one of the guys was up there, and then you hear it. You know what it's like. You know what it sounds like when a hammer hits a nail. I mean, it sounds pretty good. But we heard thud, and we knew. I heard it. Uh-oh. And this guy, he looks around, and he's thinking, I'm going to act on this one, and he thought about it for a little bit, stuck his finger in his thumb in his mouth a minute, and looked at it, and he said, praise the Lord, didn't bleed. Now the truth of the matter is, if he'd been anywhere else, that probably would have come out of his mouth. But you know what? That's the way we got to look at things. We got to think about things and look at things. Now, I'm not, we're going to have sorrow. We're going to experience sorrow. There are going to be things in our life that's going to be sorrowful. But we've got to be careful not to continue in that. We've got to say, you know what? The time of sorrow is enough now. I've got to get out of this mindset. I've got to get out of this mood. I have got to have that merry heart and get that merry heart back. And how you do it is just these things will help you get that merry heart back, because the sorrow of heart a broken spirit drieth the bones, and a sorrowful heart breaks the spirit. So make sure you do. The holiday times, there are more people who take their lives during the holidays, believe it or not. The statistics are there, and then right after the holiday than any other time throughout the year. And a lot of it has to do with that sorrowful heart. That sorrowful heart. So let's be focused. Don't get yourself. Learn to bring yourself back out of that and have that merry heart, because a merry heart doeth good like a medicine.